divorce at any age is someone takes away your future. It is the most awful, awful process. It is the most terrible thing. I mean, I put it worse than death.
Gillian Coote is one of Australia's most respected family lawyers. She's esteemed, formidable and genuine. And with her divorce, she experienced it from the other side.
Someone takes away your power. Someone just goes, nah, I'm done with you. I'm going to be much happier somewhere else. It's unbearable. It's like being eviscerated. And I had no idea until this happened to me.
Gillian shared with us the secrets to navigating divorce.
Don't assume you know best. And don't assume that you can control the process, because actually you can't. Do not say to your ex, don't you go and see a lawyer. As soon as you go and see a lawyer, I know what will happen. The lawyers are just going to make a mountain of money out of it and we'll hate each other. And a lot of that is true. Do not disempower people. Don't lecture. Don't take control. Give her a spreadsheet, so take it to a lawyer. Get advice. I'm open to questions. I want to talk to you. I want to keep our relationship as civil as possible. I don't want to cheat you. And you have to understand, because the only thing that will get you through this process is knowledge. And knowledge is empowerment, and empowerment means you will rise to the top.
From our studio in Jones Bay Wharf, Sydney, here's Pod O'Sullivan with Don't Let the Old Man In, a podcast from the Wisdom Vault.
This marriage is ending. Men realise it while sitting across from their wife or partner in silence at dinner, or having yet another argument about nothing, or lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering, when do we stop being a team? Now, divorce is easier when you're young because there's less to carry and less to divide. But if you're a guy in midlife, understanding what comes next is critical. Grey divorce, this idea of separation after decades of marriage, is one of the fastest growing trends in Australia, where I am, but in many Western countries. After 20 or 30 or even 40 years together, couples are calling it quits at unprecedented rates. And here's where it gets complicated. Divorce is not just an emotional devastation, it's financial and sometimes social carnage. Half or more of everything you've built is gone. And you're starting out again at 45, 50, 60, maybe even 70, when you thought your future was secure. And here's what happens to a lot of men in midlife. You're blindsided. There's a shock of losing your identity as a husband, the terror of financial ruin, and a future that suddenly looks nothing like you had planned. So you spiral. For some people, it's denial. We can fix it, except she's already talking to a lawyer. For some, it's guilt. So they give away everything in the settlement agreement. And for others, it's panic, calling your mates at midnight asking if you can crash on their couch, or paralysis, sitting in the house you're about to lose, unable to make a single decision. This week's episode of Don't Let the Old Man In podcast features Gillian Coote, one of Australia's most respected family and divorce lawyers. She has nearly 40 years' experience helping people work through separation, and she specialises in high conflict separations and in grey divorce. She truly understands what this is like, especially as 5 years ago she went through her own divorce, which shocked her. Gillian is extraordinarily frank about what separation costs, what mistakes destroy people, and she shared with me how to protect your mental health if you do split up. This is a roadmap through this territory that nobody wants to travel, but it could save you years of suffering and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm Pod O'Sullivan, host of Don't Let the Old Man In, and I'm radically changing my habits to live a fulfilling and healthy second half of my life. I'm also researching a doctorate in Oxford about how we men can navigate midlife and how we can handle all of our relationships well. Think of this as your midlife learning podcast. Jill Coote, let's start here. What will our men, our listeners today, what would they learn from our conversation about how to divorce well?
I think there's two things that men particularly should think about. I know you can't change DNA and you can't change history and you can't change natural tendencies. But women don't talk and men don't speak. So it's women go blah, 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 constantly. And sometimes I think it's no wonder no man or the man in question cannot respond or shuts down, because in many ways there's nothing of substance in the chat, but every now and again there is. And men, in response to the talking, don't speak at all. So there's this kind of disconnect between what you want to say and what you do say. So men say nothing and women say a whole lot of stuff that is completely irrelevant to sort of fill holes and fill gaps. And I think that is the problem. So they come in to see a lawyer and they run at the mouth and they go on and on and on, and it's all, you know, he and I. And then you get a man who says, I just want out. Just get me out of this. Just get me out now. And I do think that is the problem. Men need to slow down. Men don't generally leave for nobody. They don't just say, this is done, this is broken, this is so, I can't deal with this. Some do. There are some who do. And in a way, I have a real admiration for them, because they have tried, they have thought, they have considered, they have talked, they have had counselling, they've done all that. But instead, what they do is they let it crumble in their head, and then they go, oh, there we go.
Time to go.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
There's the thing. There's the next bright, shiny, you know, and it's completely counterproductive. And yet that is how a lot of people get through life. So maybe it's not counterproductive. Maybe it's the answer. And maybe women need to sort of be more like men.
When I met you first, and I was referred to you, and I still can't remember who did. I'm just glad that they did. Because my experience of meeting a divorce lawyer before I met you was very Hollywood-esque. You know, I will take this person for all that she has in order to represent you. And I hated that stance. And someone mentioned you, and I rang you. You were in Melbourne, I was in Sydney. I came down to see you. And the first thing you said to me was, can I help you stay married? And I said, I don't think so. And I thought it was a strange question. They said, okay, in that case, I'll help you stay out of the family court. And that was your first, and I thought, oh, wow, this is different, right? It was about how can I help as opposed to how can I take someone else for all that they've got. Which is why I've always referred people to come and see you, because she does it differently. In your opinion, Jill, what's the one thing or the number one thing that couples miss? Like, what's the sign in their relationship that something's falling apart that if they paid attention to, they may not need to come and see you?
I think that's a very complicated question, and everyone's got a different narrative. So there are different, groups, and we were talking before about 30-somethings. They don't muck around. They don't sort of hang out and just see what happens and get through the shit, for want of a better expression. They don't let time just go. They don't just say, well, these are the hard years, these are awful, we've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we don't speak to each other anymore, and we haven't got enough money to do anything. And other people come in and they say, well, I mean, yeah, look, it's over now, but I've been unhappy for 10 years. We haven't had a relationship for 15 years. We haven't had a relationship for 5 years. It's been breaking down for a long, long time. Anyone who wants to jump will rewrite history to an extent, I think.
Their own history.
Their own narrative of the... And the problem is when there are two narratives in a divorce situation, you've got one person telling their lawyer something completely different. It's just a different story. It could be in a different relationship. And I think that is the main problem. And what we need to remember as lawyers is that the narrative on the other side could be just as valid in your office as the one you're listening to. And you can't be a barracker. Being a barracker as a family lawyer, it's easy. It's easy to be a barracker. It's really easy to go, oh, you poor thing, that's terrible. Oh, my God, that's awful. How could that happen to you? I can't believe this. This is horrible. Now, when, if you see someone who has been abused badly, then sure, be a barracker, perhaps, if it's wise.
Yeah.
But being a barracker in a relationship that's just been breaking down over a very long time, and the other person may not see it like that, but your client does. It's been dead for years, they say. It's been dead for years. I mean, I don't even know what that means. Yeah. I don't know. We weren't there. We didn't see. The other person might think it was gloriously happy.
Yeah. Someone said to me once, in any kind of relationship conflict, there's at least 3 stories. There's my story, there's your story, and then there's kind of a real story that has parts of ours and parts of stuff we've both forgotten. And I think what you're saying is, if you're able to at least be aware of my narrative of what's going on, it may not be the only narrative. Yeah. That's a good starting point to try and have a conversation.
And as lawyers, I think we're obliged to sort of to temper, to try and explain that someone might see it a different way. And that doesn't mean you can't be empathetic, because it is the most awful, awful process. It is the most terrible thing. I mean, I put it worse than death. I can't even, begin to tell you to tell anyone how awful it is. But I try and explain to people. It depends on the circumstances. Sometimes people say, oh, no, it's fine. We're good. We're good. We're going to be friends, and that's great. And, we've been dead for so long, it doesn't matter, and now we're just getting on and we're coexisting. And that's great. I mean, if that actually happens, but I don't know. I think that time, whilst it helps heal, also pulls you further apart, because change in circumstances means it's very difficult to maintain a friendship. And the people who do it, initially for the sake of their children, but then later as sort of co-parents who meet regularly, who talk about things, who, what are they going to talk about? Their kids' education, how they're going, and who introduce new partners without rancour. I'm just hats off.
It can be done, but it requires a lot of conscious effort and patience.
Very rare. It's very rare, and that's totally fair in so many ways. But I think if you're trying not to get divorced, and look, it's a long life with one person. Completely, especially if you get married young, it's very, very difficult to navigate, I think, a long living life with one other person. And I was sitting at breakfast this morning on my own, and in this hotel, and there's some people who are talking, and they're talking about work and having a business meeting, and there's a couple of friends and they're talking, and then there was about 8 sets of couples.
And they weren't talking.
No, a couple of them were. Yeah. And I thought, hats off to you, because, what do you say on a daily basis? It's impossible. So it's no wonder people get bored.
Yeah. You said to me before, there's whilst every relationship is different and every reason for people to come to your office or your colleagues' offices is nuanced. So there are themes, there are regular patterns or regular themes. Other than getting bored with each other, what are some of the themes that you've come across in your career?
Well, I mean, there's obviously infidelity, and that can leave one person behind playing catch up. So that's a sort of, and therefore navigating that one is a different process in a way, depending on who you're acting for.
Yeah.
I love acting for men. I really love acting for men, because they go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I ask them a whole lot of hard questions, and sometimes they fudge it, sometimes they tell me the truth, but a lot of people are very honest when you front them. When you say, okay, so how many drugs do you take? How much do you drink? I always say, well, I drink, so can we just not get too precious about this? Tell me the truth, because if you don't tell me the truth now, I will be behind the 8 ball. It'll be my position that is compromised, and I can't help you. So tell me.
Is it difficult for you to represent someone when you have at least an instinct, even if you don't have the evidence, but you might have the evidence that they are lying to you, and then therefore they are lying in the conversations. I would imagine a lot of people will try and hide assets that can be then divided, as an example of someone who's fudging it.
I mean, we explained pretty clearly very early on that you just need to give it up, and we will have the argument about it in a different way. But I think there's a lot of, concern about people come in and they say, well, that's all in a trust. And what do you mean by that? Well, that can't be touched. Sorry, yes, it can. And so it's very bad news for a lot of people. Their financial settlement can be quite devastating to them. And I do think a lot of people stay together because
of the money, yeah.
Or it's sort of because, in a way, they might get advice and then rethink it, because if you're going to divide a lot of money in half, you might still have enough, but you have to be pretty unhappy if you're a person who collects money, who likes a lot of money. And it's not a criticism, it's just, fact of life.
Yeah.
People either kind of acquire it and then don't care, or they do care very much. And so then you've got to assess how unhappy you actually are, I think. Because
what's the trade-off here?
That's right. So unless you've got another solution, then maybe you do stay and maybe you do some work on it. But I think, hiding assets, it's not that easy anymore. It really isn't. And we can't, if we know someone is lying, we have to say, well, we're out. Go and get some more advice.
Why do you ask someone if they're taking drugs? Like, what's the reason to know that?
Children's cases.
Ah, okay.
The accusations in parenting cases lately are directed to, and this is just a vast generalisation, but it's something that's happened recently. It's, how much he drinks too much. She's an alcoholic. She drinks every day. And I go, how much? He takes, X amount of cocaine. Okay, well, that must cost a lot. How's his health? She does this, she does that. And the problem is that then it's thrown into well, in that case, he or she can't care for children. Now, that's actually not true, largely not true. A lot of people who self-medicate to a reasonable extent. I'm not calling it reasonable. I'm not like advocating drugs, but
sure.
But you can still parent your children. Yeah. You may not be able to drive.
Humans been doing that for many centuries, one way or another.
That's right. I know.
Yeah.
But it's very flavour of the month at the moment.
I would also imagine that knowing someone's self-medicating habits, to use your phrase, will also show up in the financial piece in terms of where's money being spent,
where's the
and
money
therefore
going?
Is that true or untrue versus just an accusation?
Yeah.
Your firm specialises in grey divorces, the idea of people who are divorcing later in life,
Does
40s.
If you're 60 plus and you're getting divorced, it's probably easier to talk to someone who is at least in the same sort of vintage, because it's very difficult. I think it's really difficult. I think it's a lot. I mean, maybe I'm a bit prejudiced, I suppose, or coloured, but I do think it's really hard. In some ways, the kids are gone and we don't need to worry about it, but adult children get very involved.
Just a quick break. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I hope you are too. What I've been doing with these episodes is a couple of days after I record the conversation, I sit down, grab my ideas, and I put together my reflections on the conversation and what I've learned from them and what kind of sense am I making from them. That's called my reflections episode. I also try and experiment to actually apply what I've got from the conversation. You can listen to that in an episode. You can also download a simple handout on don'tlettheoldman.com/reflections to help you do the same. Back to the conversation. I'll come to him in a second, but I was thinking about the notion of getting divorced in your 50s, 60s, even 70s. A lot of the emotional narrative of the life you assumed you were going to have is suddenly gone, right? I'm going to retire with this person. We will do this. We will go there. We will live over here. We'll holiday there.
Drive around Australia.
Caravan, exactly right. Around Australia, go to the UK, go to the US, whatever we do.
Yeah.
Our Christmases will look like this. The grandchildren will look like that. We will play whatever sports we play with our friends, and suddenly all of those ideas are smashed. I would imagine in that setting, compared to, say, someone in their 20s who doesn't have all of those narratives built up.
That's right.
I would imagine when they come to see you, it's not necessarily, it might be anger, but it'll be a lot of grief, I would imagine, going on as well.
Well, I think divorce is really just grief. Like death is grief. It is just, but it's a different type of grief because the other person isn't dead. I mean, death you can't do anything about. There's nothing, you couldn't have had any control over that. You know, you might have done your best while the person was dying. You know, if your spouse dies, you grieve, you care, you give what you can. Because, and look, if it's a sudden death, then it's very difficult, very different scenario. But getting divorced leaves the other person still in view. Divorce at any age is someone takes away your future. They just, all of a sudden, it's like, you know, in my case, it's a text message. And in so many cases, it's a text message. A text message took away what I was looking at. Now, I've got the resources to rebuild that. I mean, I've tried very hard. I've had 5 years therapy. But it just, you lose it. It goes. All your friends, all the things you've done, the things you're going to do, or in your head. That's right, in your head, not in the other person's head. And that's being blindsided is taking away the future. I think if you've been working towards it, then maybe you envisage something else, and so you have somting else.
Correct. You already start to imagine something else. Yeah.
But grey divorce, well, yeah, I think it probably is more difficult because if you get divorced in your 30s, you know, you've had this wedding and you've got your children and they're all going to play and they're going to go to this school and you're going to meet these people and you're going to be part of and it's all going to work like that.
Yep.
And then suddenly it's not.
Yep.
And you've got to be the single parent at the gate and you've got to work it all out and share your children. And I honestly, sometimes I just don't know how people do that. It must be the most grief inspiring sort of, or grief creating thing to be standing at the school gate knowing you take your child home alone. There's no one coming to be daddy or mum or whatever. And you are, I think people repartner quite quickly.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
To deal with that.
Yeah.
In your 50s and your 60s and your 70s, and I do have people who come in the 70s and go, I'm not doing it anymore. You what? What? How can you, what do you think is going to happen now? I don't care, but
This is just too much.
Doing it for one more day.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite inspiring in many ways. I just think, well, you've got optimism somewhere in you, because that's the problem. The problem with getting older is the depletion of optimism. And so somehow you've got to get it from somewhere. And when someone goes, future out.
And those folks have decided that life without you has to be better than life with you.
That's right.
I'll offer that.
And that is so unbearable. You know, if you're a person who, for me particularly, like I had no control over that. Like there's no control. Someone takes away your power. Someone just goes, nah, I'm done with you. I'm going to be much happier somewhere else. It's unbearable. It's like being eviscerated. And I had no idea until this happened to me.
Are you happy to share your story? Because you spend so much of your life helping other people in this conversation. And then your divorce happened for you. It wasn't necessarily instigated by you. In fact, you said you were blindsided by a text message. It was in the media that it happened, given your profile. So on many levels, it was a complete shock for you, given everything else. Can you tell us about it for you in terms of your story and what insights you've learned from being on the receiving end of something that you've been so involved with?
I was really lucky. I had an adult child, and I had a business, and it was family law, and I didn't know anything else except to go to work every day.
Yep.
So I just got up and went to work every day. But I was I've never ever experienced. I've had very close, a sister died, a mother died young, watching it, trying to help, all of that. Terrible grief. This was so different. And it's because I think, and I was honestly in a fetal position on the floor for months, on and off. But I got up and I went to work, because you've actually just got to put one foot in front of the other. But I now know, how a lot of people feel, and it's almost indescribable what it does to you. It changes you, and I don't know whether I would ever trust anyone again, frankly. So, because you do have a contract. And I think the problem with marriage is this stupid contract that we sign.
And we say words like for better or for worse.
No.
Rich and poor, sickness and health.
So what's worse and what's better?
Yeah.
And I absolutely think that everyone has a right to change their mind. I have no issue with it at all. But it's what it shows you about yourself, I think. And so I look at these people and I think what you're learning now is something about you that you didn't know. You didn't know how hard you'd cling. You didn't know how hard or how flippant you'd be about it, or how relieved you'd be. Because some people go, oh, thank God, she pulled the pin. Yay, I'm free. And I kind of look at them and go, wow, amazing, And I mean, that's terrific if that's how it affects you.
Yeah.
But the collateral damage is vast in terms of friends and family and extended relations. And if you've built and built and built over 25 years, 30 years, 50 years, whatever you've done, even 5 years, you build and build and you knit people together and I read something somewhere, some amazing Australian writer said something like, marriage is like a muscle. So it's like a muscle memory. You actually, the person, this is for me anyway, you live with them. Mm-hmm. And it becomes this sort of entwined.
Absolutely. And you learn to live together and you do your rituals together. You have routines that are said or unsaid, and you have your habits that you just build up. And some of those habits become the reason why you break up, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. I mean, I remember thinking at the time, how can you go from standing beside one person for 25 years cleaning your teeth and then the next day stand beside someone else and clean your teeth? It's so foreign to me that I don't understand it, but now I do, because it happens. And I used to listen to this stuff and I go, oh dear, really? Goodness. And I know that I have a lot of empathy. I understand that. But when you can actually feel someone else's shock, disbelief, and somehow stripping of everything they are and taking away everything they looked at and expected, I watch these, and they're often women, because men do move on, and I admire that in a way. I'd love to be able to move on. Of course, 5 years down, I am well moved on, but moving on to another relationship is a very different thing. Yeah.
For someone listening today who is in a relationship that they feel is coming to an end, or maybe they're even instigating it, or they're about to, or they're wondering, etc., but they haven't gone through it, what's the first year look and feel like? after they've done that, and I appreciate there's many variations, but when you think of all the people that you've known over the years, including your own experience, what's in that first year? Because my experience is it's a year of shocks that you can't foretell.
Yeah.
And as you already said, there's emotions that might be relief, and there's certainly some of that for me. There's emotions of grief, there's loads of that for me. But the shocks were people that I thought were friends now no longer are, because they've taken sides for whatever reason, or it's uncomfortable, or to your point about you brushing your teeth with someone and suddenly you go, oh, that's not them, or there's no one there, or whatever. That's right. Yeah. What's the first year look like in your experience?
It's a big period of adjustment, and I think it depends how far down the sort of emotional track you are. It's learning how to. So if you didn't do it, put out the rubbish. Learning how to fix things yourself instead of squawking for help. Yeah. It's learning to be the one that kills the huntsman, or or the one who actually has to build a social life and a friendship life if you've never done it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where men, because women are so much better at that, they naturally build and bring in. And for men, I think, who don't have that sort of instinct, they then, the addition of a new partner takes away the need to do any of that.
Yeah.
And you just, I'll have your friends and we'll do this together, and I'll fill the hole that is, 200 feet deep and I can't even look into with all of that stuff, and it'll be great. And then one day I'll die, and, whereas now I think about death all the time, because it's sort of, because I've had all this time to think.
Yeah.
And kind of no other half, no dependence really, and a dog that's almost out of here. So, I mean, what, there's a lot of time to self-reflect, Rod.
Yeah, there's too much time
to self-reflect, so I just work very hard instead.
You know what, you've just said something that reminded me. When, so my children were 7 and 2 when I got divorced originally.
That's very tough.
And I, as you will remember, because you helped me, I insisted on having 50-50 custody. I really believed that was very important for a whole lot of reasons. But I was also running a business. So, running your own business, having young children, etc., going through all of the ups and downs of a divorce, all that together was a very tough time. But someone gave me advice that I'm so grateful that they did, which goes to your thing about, you got to learn to put out the bins, or you got to learn to this. I had to learn how to brush my daughter's hair so it wasn't knotted.
How to parent.
Because I'd never done that before, right? And the advice I got was, make sure you get to know your neighbours, and make sure you get to know the other moms who are bringing the kids to school. Be the first parent to offer to have their children onto your houses. Like do all that, because when you need favours, you know who to call. Yeah. And after a few months of this, one of the mothers in the school took me inside and said, "Do you want me to show you how to brush your daughter's hair? Because I don't think you're very good at it." I said, please, I don't know what to do. Because I'm not renowned for having long hair, Jill, am I? But there's a whole lot of learning about stuff that, the other person used to do this. I didn't even know they did that. No.
I do say to some women, you need to teach him how to parent. He can't do that. He can't do that. He doesn't know how. And that's why they should be with me. I mean, the problem with this is the pain and the hurt is so enormous, and also the fear of being alone for everybody is just horrendous. And so if you cling to your children as props and as company, and because you feel that you're validated by having more time, and look, I don't advocate, I don't say to people, just let's get 50-50, 50-50. What you need to do is share. It doesn't matter whether you have 5 nights or 7 nights or, 6 nights. And people, we have these ridiculous reports that say, well, why don't we start with 5 nights and then we'll progress to 6-8. What does that even mean? Who cares? Let's do what is in the best interests of these children. Do they really need to go from 1 to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, all within a fortnight's period. Can't we just break it up? Can't we just, and when they are 13 or 12 or whatever, let's ask them. Let's actually say, what would make this easier for you? You love your parents equally. You love them dearly. You need both of them. I mean, you can't really ask a 12-year-old, but, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, you can't. I just say to people, are you serious?
Let's start with a younger child. What happens when a younger child says, I would prefer to live with mom, as an example? It doesn't make a difference which parent, but let's just, in this case, let's say mom. For a lot of dads, that's devastating because that suggests the child has picked mom. That suggests the child might be thinking that I'm at fault, maybe, and therefore other people might be at fault. How do you help the parent who's not being the chosen parent manage that conversation for themselves, particularly their own hurt?
There are cases, and quite a lot of cases, unfortunately, where a parent might be, and look, I use this word very, very carefully, an alienator. And an alienator is a person who subconsciously or consciously turns the child against the other parent. Now, it happens, it's horrible, and if the other parent pursues it and the child is young enough, then it does happen that the living arrangement will change. Because that is really bad parenting. So the only way you can get through this, and, I say to people, don't talk to your children about these adult matters. Do not discuss it. Your ex, despite his shortcomings, is a good bloke, a good father. Was he not a good father 3 weeks ago? Was he not a good father last year? Yeah, well, he's a good father, but he doesn't do anything. Yeah, well, he's a good father, but he's never done this and never done that. I say, well, teach him. You need to teach him to do these things because your child needs both of you. And men come in and they say, 7-7, I want 7-7. I want 50-50 on the money and 50-50 on the kids. And I don't understand, Pod, maybe you can enlighten me, what it is about men that have this, it's this sort of, it must be 50-50. I said, well, 3 months ago, was it 50-50? Well, I do everything. I come home and I have to read and I have to bath and I have to... Okay, that's great. But you're still going to go to work. So what happens in those hours? You do it because she's exhausted or whatever. And look, sometimes people who both work, it is shared. And it's shared, except that, she keeps track of the school stuff and does the lunches and all of that.
And I think that's right. I think if both parents are working, then the jobs are divided, as you quite rightly said.
And maybe 7-7 is absolutely the right thing, especially if they're old enough. I mean, it's much easier for kids to sort of go. And also, when teenagers go 7-7, it's complete bliss. They don't have to put up with, they get the best of... I was
going to say that to you. There's two age groups here. Like there's the young kids, and I remember you saying that. I remember you asking me and talking to me about this notion of alienator, and I remember you saying to me, whatever you do as a parent, do not criticize their mom in front of them. And it's something I've never forgotten, by the way, and it's something I've spoken to a lot of men I've met who are going through tricky separations for whatever reason. I said, there's two things to get right if you have young kids. Get the rhythm clear so the kids know where they're going, when they're going, and their routine is set in stone. Then they're comfortable.
Don't stress out your children.
The second thing is do not criticize them, even if they hear you being criticized over there. Even if
they're a complete and utter bitch. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And try and keep your emotion, and that is almost impossible. Especially when you have a very grief-struck parent or blindsided parent or an abused parent. Horrible. And men get abused too. Men do get thoroughly abused, and I think the IVO process doesn't help so many times. I mean, yes, of course we need it, and domestic violence is the worst thing ever, ever, ever. But if you just use the intervention order process to get someone out of a house and to exclude them from a life.
That's traumatic.
It's really traumatic.
Yeah.
And you have men living alone who do not know how to cope. Women are much better at this.
Yeah.
And men just go, well, now I don't have any children and I don't have a wife. And so what will I do? Okay, well, I'll drink a lot.
My whole identity is gone. Yeah. I want to come back to that topic.
Okay, sorry.
Those topics are so important to talk into. I just want to tie off on the children a second. Just underlining the point, for anyone listening to this who is in that process, your words of wisdom to me that I've never forgotten is, do not alienate the other parent. Do not criticize them. Set up the rhythm so the kids are in a regular, the kids know where they're going. That will give them a sense of security. That's such a huge simplicity and words of wisdom that you said to me a long, long time ago.
And if you're a parent who cares, who loves your children and who can parent, even if you don't know how to get the knots out of the hair, I mean, they're things that can be learned. What can't be learned is putting them first and growing them. And they need both people. They need both examples. They need both the input from, and the more people who care about them. I mean, really, it takes a village. You know, if we were all living in villages, this would be so much easier.
Yeah, exactly
so much
right.
easier.
Let's just pause for a second. If you've made it this far, it must mean you're enjoying the show. We want to keep bringing you awesome conversations, but algorithms are like needy toddlers. They demand constant validation. So if you're liking this, please hit the like button, the follow button, the subscribe button, whatever button. It helps us land more great guests to keep entertaining you. And if you're listening to this on an audio podcast app, come over and watch us on YouTube. I promise we're reasonably photogenic. Back to the show. How about adult children? Like we think about older parents divorcing. I must imagine it must be as equally a shock to their adult children as to anybody else.
Oh, adult children are sometimes more problematic. I mean, a lot of people wait until their children finish school, and I get that as a concept. I really do get it as a concept, but I don't think that living in an environment with 15, 16-year-olds in the house who pick up everything, you think you can hide your unhappiness from an adult child, you are completely deluded. They know everything, and they might see your phone before you tell your partner. They're not silly. And living in unhappiness, and I say this to women sometimes, don't just put up with this. And they're, obviously abused women financially or emotionally or, don't start me on narcissism or gaslighting. There's an awful lot of that. And who knows what the truth is and what the truth isn't. But if you feel like you're being abused and it looks like you're being abused and you stay, and the same applies to men. If you have a very controlling partner who just does not let up, and you shrink and you shrink and you shrink, that is a very bad example
for your children.
Yeah. All of it is and women who put up with violence, and I totally get why they do. I get why people can't leave. I really understand it. And sometimes this is what gets them out, is I will no longer do this because I am setting an example for my daughter that she will never be able to reframe.
Yeah, that intergenerational learning will just pass by. Yeah.
So you have to change it.
Yeah.
You have to try and change your generational trays that aren't helpful.
Yeah. You said don't get you started on narcissism, but I want to.
Oh.
You've written and talked about this, and you have a degree of expertise in this area.
Well, I don't, because I'm not a psychologist.
But you've seen enough people who at least say, I think my partner might be a narcissist, or if they're generous, might say they display some tendencies that...
No, they don't. They say, she or he is a complete narcissist. Totally. And I've done all the research, they say. Okay, good.
And exiting that relationship is fraught with difficulty.
And narcissism, we're all narcissistic.
Yeah. It's just where on the spectrum are we sitting?
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's an overused expression. But if you actually live with a true narcissist who simply cannot see anything else except their own needs, then the only way to deal with them is to leave and not to engage, because the only way to deal with them is to deprive a narcissist of airtime, of airspace, of any reaction. So you get out and you just don't respond. You just don't respond.
So you have a third party, like you respond on your behalf.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But even then, when that process is finished, because it's all very well, isn't it? You've got your lawyers, and I think some people can't settle a case and can't finish anything because they can't let go, and it's one way of
keeping the person
of keeping it close. And that's just, I get it, and that's the problem. I feel like I understand all these responses now, but it's trying to get people to see that isn't going to help them, and the only thing that will help them is finding the best thing in themselves, bringing it to the top every day, saying, I will rise above it. I'll rise above my own pain, my own terrible grief and horror and shock and the damage it's done to my entire ego. There we go again, it's ego. And I honestly thought this would never happen to me. I honestly thought that as a family lawyer, I don't know, not as a family lawyer, but I thought there was no divorce in my family. Like, that's what you do. You just don't divorce. I mean, why would you divorce? You choose this person, you stay. And now I know. I never thought I was like that, but now I know I am really like that. And so I have to watch myself. And I watched myself get out of this sort of situation thinking, and also being a reasonably prominent family lawyer, I thought, this can't happen to me. How can this happen to me? It is so humbling. How could it happen to us? And it did.
Yeah.
And, there is a certain stigma. I don't care what anyone says. You're divorced.
Do you think, well, I was just going to ask you about that. There is a narrative in some aspects of society, divorce is failure. You promised you would, you contracted you would, you said these words, you said in front of other people, hey, we turned up and we even gave you a gift for doing so.
That's right.
And now you're divorced. What's your view of that in terms of failure versus actually it's a good thing?
Probably before it happened to me, I probably did have that it's a failure thing. And so, and I thought in my practice that I was helping people, and I hope I was. I mean, I hope I still do. But now I had to get over that. I had to not see it as a failure because it's your failure. You didn't live up, Jill. You did not do it right. Whatever you did wrong, who knows? You didn't do it. It's your fault. It's absolutely your fault. You must take responsibility for this. And it literally has taken me years to work out that is not actually correct, and that it takes two to do everything in these cases. But also, it's not a failure. What the problem is the standing up and saying, I promise, I promise, I promise.
Yeah. The original contract is so high.
That's the aspect of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, you sign this stupid contract, right? And look, honestly, I think actually I love it when people get married. I want to be a marriage celebrant as well. I don't know whether I can do that. It was a massive conflict. But I really love it when
You mean so you can line up customers for later? Is that what you're saying?
Total romantic, right? It's so sad. It is so sad. But I love it when people, who are right for each other, whatever that means, or later in life, get together. I think that's terrific. I mean, the problems that arise are just horrendous in terms of adult children and wills and, all of that. But have your moment in the sun. Have your moment of romance. Good on you.
Yeah.
That's called optimism.
Yeah.
But the problem is the narrative in the first place.
Yeah.
I will not break this contract, because nobody, and you don't get penalised under the Family Law Act for breaking the contract. So why do it? And yet the other part of me says, oh, it's so gorgeous and lovely and I love it and I'm a romantic, and why doesn't someone come along and say to me, Jill, you're amazing and I love you and I want to marry you?
So you haven't lost that romantic part of you despite
no, but I know
observing
that's
the
not
cynical
going to
side of
happen.
life.
I'm also a massive realist. So,
you know, this narrative piece, I mean, I grew up in Ireland, hyper-Catholic Ireland. In fact, those people who know me will remember I spent a few weeks in the priesthood. That's how hyper-Catholic Ireland. I did when I was 18 and a half. I was going to become a priest. And then everyone kept saying to me, you won't last this. And they were all right. So I left after a few weeks. But hyper-Catholic Ireland.
You'd be a great priest.
Well, I've always said, if ever, God forbid I don't, if ever I divorce a second time, I'm going to become a monk. I'm going to take out the monk's life.
I'm already a nun, so, you know. But yes, I know. Yes, that's right. Like, because how could you go through it again?
No, I don't want to.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
No.
But I was the first, and to my knowledge, I still am the first in my broader family to get divorced. It was a complete shock to my family. Some members of my immediate family didn't talk to me for years.
Really?
Afterwards. Yeah, absolutely. Oh. But my dad, who's now passed away, whose mural is on our wall.
Right, yeah.
Maybe about a year into the whole separation, he took me aside one day. He said, in my generation, we would never do that. He said, we were wrong. He said, I do not want to see you unhappy for the rest of your life. And then he said something. He said, I wish people in my generation had more courage.
Yeah.
And that's what gave me the kind of, oh, okay, there's a narrative, but actually there's also a sense of courage here that he's recognizing. And he gave me, in my view, he gave me the permission to go ahead, which was hugely important.
Yeah. And I think, you know, in lots of cases, that's the right thing to do. I don't think divorce is wrong. I think if you're really unhappy, you have to leave. You can't live your life being unhappy for someone else. Absolutely. But I think there are degrees and degrees of unhappiness.
Yeah.
And, you know, boredom is not unhappiness.
No, it's boredom. That's right.
Boredom.
I want to talk to you about starting over in a few minutes. But before we get to that, you've mentioned a few minutes ago finance. And a lot of people, I imagine, come to you or to your colleagues to help negotiate a financial settlement as part of the overall piece. Because if there was no angst or no disagreement around that part, the rest is straightforward to manage yourself. Like you can end your relationship quite civilly as a couple without having to engage
That's right.
anybody
Divorce
else.
itself is really easy.
Yes, that's right. It's a forum and it's a process, a way to go.
Parenting and money.
For those of us who are in midlife, and you already said this, some people might get advice and go, hold on, the financial aspect of this is really hard, therefore I won't. For those who are going through the process and the financial aspect is a really big part of the conversation, what's the reality of their life versus the fear that they come with? How do you help them to take, look at the trade-off and then come to a really clear perspective?
Men think that a property settlement often, and these are vast generalisations and I really don't like making them in many ways, but a lot of men think that a property settlement ought to be really easy. You know, there's the assets, there's the liabilities. You can have half, and I'll deduct that, and I'll deduct this, and I'll deduct that, and I'll have this spreadsheet that's very clever, and we'll sit down together, and then I'll give it to a lawyer. She's blindsided, let's just say. She's blind. This is just a pretend, scenario. She's blindsided. He's saying 50-50. 50-50 on the kids, 50-50 on the money, and I'll pay the school fees. And you can bugger off and life will be really great. And that is the problem with men, and I don't mean the problem with men, but what a lot of men do is make it too simple. They try to make it too simple because they can't see any other reality.
And it's probably also, if it's simple, we can get through it quickly and move on.
That's right. It's the moving on. It's the just slow down, give her time to catch up, and even if she can't catch up, give her time to get advice. Do not say to your ex, don't you go and see a lawyer. As soon as you go and see a lawyer, I know what will happen. The lawyers are just going to make a mountain of money out of it and we'll hate each other. And a lot of that is true. So I say to them, look, all that is true, but you say that, and what you do is you disempower her. Do not disempower people. Do not assume that she will understand your narrative or what you are saying about your financial position. Don't do it. Don't lecture. Don't take control. Give her a spreadsheet, so take it to a lawyer. Get advice. I'm open to questions. I want to talk to you. I want to keep our relationship as civil as possible. I don't want to cheat you. I don't want to, do a deal without you knowing what you're doing. As soon as I hear a woman say to me, well, he says that, if I go and see a lawyer, it's all going to be the most terrible thing in the world and we are never going to be friends again and he will just escalate. You say that to someone and the lawyer goes, well, fuck that for a joke. Of course we do. Of course we do.
Yeah. It's incendiary, isn't it?
But it is, because it's him saying, I know best. Don't assume you know best. And don't assume that you can control the process, because actually you can't. None of us. And this is, I think, for men, the hardest thing. It's like women saying to women, don't assume you can control his parenting style. His parenting style is completely different to yours, and that is a consequence. So together you would have sort of meshed a parenting style, a common one together with your expectations and his expectations, and you'd have done it together and would have sort of worked, maybe, you don't know. But when he takes his parenting style over here and you take your parenting style just there, then what we have are two completely different. Sometimes, hopefully they're the same, but if they're not, then we talk about, parallel parenting. So you have to suck it up. You can't control him. You can't say, don't talk to the children like that. Don't do this, don't do that. You can't. You're divorced. Bad luck now.
Yeah.
And it's the same with money. So if he says to her, and it is often this narrative still, even though a lot more women are a lot more wised up these days, thankfully, not so sort of dependent. Having said that, there are a lot of women who say, I don't have access to this, I don't have access to that. He gives me an allowance. I go, what?
Yeah. What year are we living in?
An allowance?
Yeah.
Is that enough? So, but if he says to her, this is how it will be, then you can bet your bottom dollar if she goes to the right lawyer, he's fucked. Sorry. I don't mean that. I mean it will.
It'll blow up. Yeah, of course
Yeah.
it will. What happens is this is a regular thinking pattern from a men's perspective. And I'm not suggesting it's right, but then I know it's regular. I have been the breadwinner. I have contributed a lot more financially to our family. I've paid for you to do blah, 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 whatever that is. And I am being extraordinarily generous by saying 50-50.
Oh, I'm a hero.
I'm a hero. But I actually also believe that I've contributed more. I'm taking into account that you've done a lot of the parenting while I've been working. So I'm kind of considering that as 50-50. But I'm landing here. And how dare you think it shouldn't be 50-50? You are wrong. You're terrible. This is why I'm divorcing you. I'm now validated.
That's right. And I think sometimes the process that people go through with lawyers does validate, because everybody hates each other. I mean, I say to clients, look, you go that way, there's a train wreck around the corner, I can see it. I've been doing this job for so long, there is definitely a train wreck. What do you mean? Well, you'll say this, he'll say that. It'll cost you this amount, that amount. And by the time we get to there, not only will you hate him or her, and he will hate you, or, vice versa. You'll hate each other. There's no doubt about it. You'll also hate your lawyers. You'll hate your lawyers. And we will hate you, actually.
That's right.
We will hate you too, because we will find you unmanageable. Yeah. You will whinge and carry on, and it'll be fair enough, a lot of it, but we can't fix it. The court system is entirely discretionary. We can't even, I tell people, I always say in the first conference, if I possibly can, I say, this will be the outcome. It'll be this percentage or that percentage. This is the asset pool. Let's make it up. If we don't know the figures, let's make it up. If we make it up, then this is how it's going to go. If they're this figure, then that figure, then this is. So start thinking about that. Think about your life. Build a picture now that you are filling in to give yourself control, because the only way to get through it is to empower yourself with either knowledge or kind of self-awareness. Surround yourself with friends, particularly if you're a male. Get a new friend, not a female, just a friend, not a new lover or a new partner, just get a friend. Get 10 friends and talk to them, for God's sake.
Is that part of your thinking around the protecting your own mental health during separation?
Yeah, because a lot of men, I think, get incredibly depressed. And some do tell us, some do, and I think they're incredibly courageous. And I do think, some men in their sort of 40s are remarkable because they are very different, and I think that's really impressive. And in their 20s, actually, I don't know about 30s, but the sort of,
what is it about those two ages?
I don't know. I mean, 50s men are weird often, I think, in their 50s. And
my wife might agree with you.
But I remember my dad said to me once, he had dementia, but he said to me, men at this age, it's the fear of the crusher. I said, Dad, what's the crusher? And he could hardly speak. The crusher. Mm-hmm. And his carer, the woman who was helping me at the time, said, he's talking about death, Jill. It's the crusher. And it's absolute, abject, shit-stirring fear that you run. You panic, you run. You don't think straight. You don't talk. You don't say, God, I'm so scared of death. I'm so scared of being irrelevant. I'm so scared of retirement. I'm so scared of not doing what I should have done, or not having done the career I wanted to do, or not being artistic.
And that's why this whole podcast exists, is for that conversation.
So just pull yourself together, guys, and don't rush. I know it's tempting.
Well, I think if I've taken anything from this conversation today, it's that whole notion of, even if you're driving the outcome, you're trying to get out, you're trying to accelerate this, that's the wrong energy. That's only going to get you into trouble. So slow it down.
Look, there's nothing wrong with a quick settlement. It's a great idea. If
everyone agrees. Yeah.
If everyone knows what they're doing, and everyone does agree.
Yeah.
But if there's if one person is floundering and the other person is going, just do it. This is in everybody's best interest. Or, the narrative of, this is the wonderful narrative that some men who have businesses, they decide that this is what they're going to do. So I'm going to have the business. It's for the children. That's for the children. The business might be worth $15 million, but that's for the kids. That's for the kids. So you're not getting any of that. You've got enough over here with, this property and some money. That's the old sort of, it's the 80s version of the Family Law Act, which was, how much does she need?
Yeah.
If you ever say that to your ex, you are completely screwed. Because, if I hear a woman say to me, well, he asked me how much I needed, I just see red. And then I have to kind of wind back because it's not my life. And I say to them, but it's not about what you need, it's what you're entitled to. Yes, it's about what you need, because we have to work backwards.
Yeah.
But we have to look at, and you have to understand, because the only thing that will get you through this process is knowledge. And knowledge is empowerment, and empowerment means you will rise to the top.
Speaking of knowledge, how much should we listen to our well-meaning friends relative to experts?
I think it's time to stop listening to your mate who got divorced 2 years ago and got taken to the cleaners. And it's a really good idea not to. Women are the worst at this. My friend got 70%. So, well, there must have been a reason for that, because no one gets 70%. That's nonsense, you know. Well, she did, so I might go to another one. I go, good on you. Off you go. What a great idea. Because all you can do is tell them. And, you know, the train wreck of a trial is unutterable. It's so expensive. It's so fraught. And how much hate. And some people have to. We have no choice. And it's the most awful thing in the world, a trial, a family court, because we don't know what's going to happen.
That's why I said up front, that's why I remember you telling me I want to keep you out of the family court as much as I can for all those reasons.
And we do issue proceedings a lot, but that's to sort of get documents and get stuff happening, and then we go to a mediation, which are a bit overblown themselves these days, but it's better than the alternative.
Let's assume someone is coming through, or they've already negotiated a settlement, or indeed they're on the other side of the agreement, and they are not someone who was moving straight on to somebody else. But so they're now in a phase of life, they're trying to start over. And I appreciate you've already said to us, you're in that phase of life, or you're coming out of that phase of life. A lot of us feel paralyzed. You know, the identity we had is completely gone.
Yeah.
And we've got to create a new one, or at least aspects of a new one. In your experience, be it your own or be it what you've observed, what does life feel like when the dust settles? Like when everything is settled and you're in this new relativity of normal, what does that look like? And the reason I'm asking is your firm says, we're going to get you to the other side. It's a great line, by the way.
Yeah. It's the polar bear jumping across from one iceberg. So I've got this triptych of photographs in the office that I found years and years ago in some gallery. And the polar bear is on an iceberg with a big gap. It's a big gap in the middle, like a terrible, terrible. And I never thought I would have to go over that pot. I never thought I would. And I did. And you do get to the other side. And look, to be perfectly honest, I still don't particularly want to be on the other side. But it gives you a lot. I mean, it's given me a lot of self-awareness. It's given me... And I do think I'm probably better at my job now in lots of ways, but it's given me a freedom I didn't know really existed. Yep. But it also, I think it just forces you. You don't have any choice. And that's the problem for me, was not having the choice. But you've just got to suck it up. And then you've got to say, all right, what can I now do? I can really do whatever I want while my health, you know, holds up. I love what I do. I actually really love it. And I think I've still got a lot to add, so I'm not giving up anytime soon. But in terms of what it looks like, it looks very, very different. But then I probably had our son had sort of, it was COVID, you know, like COVID changed everything as well. Yep. So I thought, at the time, because I remember a client said to me, a former client who I love very dearly, and she's now a really good friend of mine. And I think that's the freedom you get. You get the freedom to choose your friends again.
It's not part of a couple. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And it's not your partner's
And it's very
friends.
hard because everyone's part of a couple. Because my friends don't divorce either. My family doesn't divorce. My friends don't divorce. So they're all in couples, and that is hard. I still find that really hard. But there are so many people out there who are absolutely wonderful and have a lot to say. Now, this friend of mine, she said to me, well, Jill, it's 5 years. And I said, it cannot possibly be 5 years. I don't have 5 years. What do you mean it's 5 years? Now, I'll be okay. I'll be okay in a year and a half. I'll be okay in 2 years. I might be okay in 3. And then, you know, I'll be okay. I'm going to be fine. And you know what? It's nearly 5 years, and it's 5 years. It's probably more for some people. And I think someone actually said to me after I espoused this theory to someone, she said, it's actually 10. I said, no, under no circumstances. She said, to sort of clear it, and to heal properly, it's 10 years. I said, well, that isn't ever going to happen. We're not doing 10 years.
Yes.
I don't know what I expect to happen.
Yeah.
Like there's no magic moment, but there sort of is in a way. I think there sort of is when you sort of go, okay, I'm me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay on my own. And I'm really lucky because I can be okay on my own. A lot of people can't.
That's correct. And those of us who are listening who are struggling with being alone, your earlier point is find new friends, do new things, go to new circles.
Say yes to
everything. That's exactly right. Yeah,
and men need to say yes to everything too. Women are much better at that. I'll go and do pole dancing, which I intend to take up, just saying. Can
we do a recording after so we can tell you about it?
But men don't really. They do their bike riding and their mountain climbing and their marathon running or whatever, but it's very like that.
Yeah.
If you start to think like that, just say yes. Go to a concert you never thought you would go to. Go to listen to music. Go to a play. Do something different for God's sake.
You're meeting new people and new groups. Absolutely.
And I found, just in the last year, I sort of pulled myself up and thought, hang on, 2 years ago you were saying yes to things that were very different. Now you're going back to, what you know. And it's what you know that got you into the problem in the first place, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So it's what you don't know that you've got to find before I die.
Jill, it's been a fantastic and interesting conversation, and I said up front, you helped me a lot many, many years ago, and that's why I was really keen to have you here. I love the fact that you are interested in being a marriage celebrant and a divorce lawyer in the same lifetime. Yes, there's a potential clash of interest, but jeepers, it sounds good. Choose us here and then choose us there.
That's right.
What would the 75-year-old version of Gillian Coote be asking of you now if she could talk to you?
I think she'd be saying, maybe you should try online dating. No, I don't know. I actually have no answer to that. I thought about that question, because you ask other people that. And I thought, I don't know what I honestly don't know. It's a very good thing to think about. But I think I would hope that I would be saying to me, be optimistic. Don't fall into, you poor thing, you're single and alone, and, just be optimistic and be open and don't close yourself off, because I do tend to get a bit defensive and, so I think just be open to new things and new challenges. And I don't, I would like to think that maybe at 75 I'd be looking back and going, yeah, you expanded things, you expanded your own sort of work life in a way that gave you great satisfaction. I want to write a book, so I'm hoping that 75-year-old will be saying to the 65-year-old, well done, you wrote the book.
Is that about this topic?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
Right.
Don't know anything else.
Right. We'll
can hardly talk about marathon running or
Can we have you on next year when you've written the book?
Sure. There's a challenge,
There's
actually.
a challenge?
Yeah.
Should we book the date now before you go? I'll ring Trudy, your assistant, to go book her back in because she'll have written the book.
She'll make me do it.
She will.
She will make me do it. She'll probably send me home twice a week to go and write another chapter.
I'll call Trudy when you leave here to go. Jill and I have agreed. She's writing a book. It's essential that she does it. It's a legacy and a help.
Yes, by Christmas. Maybe it needs to be by Christmas. I do need I need a challenge.
Speaking of books, speaking of all of the legacy information that you've gathered over your career, for the listener and the listeners who are in the process or contemplating the process of divorce, what are your final words of wisdom for them?
I think try not to hate. Try and forgive everyone. And maybe listen to properly qualified people who are giving you sometimes very expensive advice. Listen to them. They're there to argue the toss with you, there's no point in screaming and yelling at your lawyer. Get good advice and take it. Listening. Like, a lot of people are too anxious to listen, and I get that. And I say to them, go away, you won't have heard half of what I've said. You've brought a friend, that's fantastic. We can do it all again. We can go through it when you're calmer. Take advice. See a psychologist. Don't just jump into something new that may or may not work to sort of soothe your, battered ego. Just don't resort to self-medication, even though that's very difficult. Just try and calm the fuck down. That's what I would say.
Jill Coote, sage advice as always. A pleasure to have you here.
Do not print that.
Thanks for listening or watching, depending which platform you're accessing this podcast on. I hope you enjoyed it. I really got a lot from that conversation. And I will record a short episode next on what I've learned, my thoughts on the conversation, some reflections. And I'm going to do an experiment based upon what I've learned today. So you'll hear about that in the next episode. If you want a permanent reminder of what we chatted about or some of the key summary points, go to don'tlettheoldman.com/reflections and download that. In the meantime, don't let the old man in. We'll see you next time.